Hey y'all, the real Jimmy Roberts 1 here, and today we have more visual evidence of this decimated civilization on Mars. And here we apply a contrast filter. It makes it a little easier on the eyes. And also here we blur some things that we don't want to be concerned with. So what happens is we're not adding to, we're taking away. It makes things really stand out. Now the visible section of this hill, that's a 16-foot elevation rise. That's 16 feet of a hill that is about 20 foot tall. Now check this out. Even with the obfuscation process, things are missed. So no, poster child Cy Mandan and others like him, 60-mile-an-hour winds are not a more reasonable explanation for this formation. And all of our measurements are carefully made using NASA's Planetary Data System MSL Curiosity Analyst's notebook. And Missy Roberts has graciously agreed to be our 5-foot Martian model, although she insists that you know that she is actually 5'1½". And sure as shooting, someone's going to comment, "That woman looked photoshopped." You gotta laugh at people. What else can you do? And down here is a lot more evidence, some of it quite bizarre. By the way, everything you're seeing here pretty much is in our stereoscopic section. That's right, you can look at it in 3D at marsfam.net. So that object in the back is about a foot tall, you notice. Now here is another slightly different angle of the same 3 objects, or however many objects we got grouped together. We always look for as many angles of everything that we see to make certain that these aren't just tricks of light, and they're not, folks. It's real. This is a navigational camera shot of the same area, pointing out the same groupings of things that we were looking at, including up here at the top, the area where Missy was hanging out. There she is again, our 5'1½" Martian model Missy. And another NavCam image. This one's really interesting, mainly because it's more of a straight-on shot of what we were just looking at. Now to put it into perspective, there she is. And here's that object that looked like an animal with its mouth open. I know y'all saw that. But regardless, this angle really solidifies that this is artificial. That's 11 feet. Now we've discussed in previous productions how these NavCam grayscale images are obfuscated differently. Sometimes they're quite a bit truer to what is there. You see these objects, take a good look at this. You will not see these in the mast cam versions. They are completely rockified. Remember, that's a word now. Now this is a gorge that either has or used to have water running through it. It's very wide, and it's important. There is the area where Missy was hanging out. Let's get the perspective right here, okay? Now listen, we are looking at a big and vast area, and I can prove this. Now that arrow that just came through there is indicating where the gorge runs, and you will be able to see this very well in the stereoscopic section. Now in the past, people have argued that this is a small area, but no. They are incorrect. Now as you see, that's an area nearer to us that is 38 yards across. Now as we zoom in, I think you can now see this gorge. And please note these measurements. That's right, nearly an American football field and a half across that. And for kicks and giggles, here's the precise locations of the measurements. Remember, this uses the same Cartesian mapping that the rover used to navigate. That area back there is not mapped. It's too far away. And how deep is the gorge? Well, we can't see all of it, but we can see some of it. And what we do is we get a profile measurement, and I won't get into all the numbers, but if you look at that graph, you can get an idea of the angle. And what it amounts to is a 28-foot drop into that gorge that's visible anyway, and that's over about 110 yards. So that area in the back, though not mapped, I think it's reasonable that we're talking a mile or more. Now here is a different mosaic of that gorge. And you know, we've been following a river and various streams that seem to join it. And if it's not running through this gorge, I know where it is running. back here. And we threw a little bit of a contrast filter on this that really brings it out. Now remember, there's what we believe to be an automated obfuscation process involved with these images. Sometimes it hides this water, fairly well, and sometimes hardly at all. Now a context view again, there is where we left off on the left side. So let's look over here and see if this stream continues. And yes, it does. You can see it's slightly smeared, but it's there. It's there all the way through the 20-ish mile travel of the rover Curiosity. Flow direction would be left to right. Now, before we move on from this particular area, there's a few objects, at least the shapes, even with the rockification, obfuscation. I thought this was fairly interesting. Now the stereoscopic 3D with and without glasses for this is at marsfam.net, and I promise you, you're going to really like it. I mean, I like this, but the 3D, whew, man. So let's get back up here. Now let's take it in this direction and see what we find. So here is the entire 20-foot tall hill that we started out looking at. And here is that area in which we began, where Missy was hanging out and such. Now allow me to show you the NavCam image where we actually took these measurements for the height. You see that's just short of a 20-foot tall hill. And we're talking 50 yards, a little over 50 yards at that base measurement, a little more than half of an American football field. That should put it into perspective for most. So how far is it from left to right in this image? It's about 230 yards, okay? Now I know we have talked a lot recently about how much is actually being hidden in these images. Sometimes all you can really trust is the basic shape, if that. But look here, here's an area that really didn't get covered back up. It looks like the rover, you can see the tracks roughed up an area, and the software didn't go in and color it in. That's metal, folks, and I insist that most of what's underneath this is metal. That's where we were. Now look at this. This is going to give you an idea of just how much the exterior of these objects and such are changed. Here is that same area in a navigational camera image where they're not really changed as much. And look at that. That's a lot of difference. The shape is very similar, but that's about it. So I've been insisting that this river, stream, whatever you want to call it, runs back behind this just like it does in other images. And so perhaps if we pan along here, maybe it will show back up. Maybe we will get lucky. What is that I see right there? I'll tell you what it is. But first, look where the arrow is. What do you make of that? We've seen this before. It's clearer in some images than others. Something's going on back there, folks. Now, I have presented this before as a dam and a spillway, and I will do that again. Here is a NavCam image, quite a bit more detailed. And there are measurements, and I'm going to tell you what, the next production, the next video, we're going to look at this in a lot more detail. There's a colorization approximation of what we're dealing with. It's real, folks, and this is in 3D at marsfam.net. Go check it out. We will be back soon with more on this.